Welcome to the Leader More podcast. Our motive is to pass on what we've found helpful over the years through leading teams, running operations, and dealing with life's challenges. We hope you enjoy. Welcome. Solo episode today. Wanted to talk through the question of how do you measure your performance as a leader? So essentially, how do you know whether you're doing a good job or not as a leader? Now, on the back of grand final season within different sports around Australia, both from a professional and a recreational point of view, in regards to coaches and how, as a coach, can I measure whether I'm doing a good job. One of probably the main things that come to mind is the complexity in being able to measure and just understand as a leader or coach how much I'm actually contributing and influencing that performance. You know, if you looked at the two aspects of, of leadership, whether it be in businesses or from a sporting aspect, is like, okay, I've got the task side of things. So some pretty clear objectives that can be measured, whether that be financial performance, whether that be playing performance from a win-loss point of view. It could be around hitting benchmarks and strategic outcomes and so forth. So there are a number of things there that you can actually measure quite easily. Probably easy to measure, but hard to understand and attribute, particularly to one person. Is that the actual leader themselves? Is it their leadership team or their coaching team underneath them? Is it a team effort from a board of directors all the way through to frontline leaders? Is it actually the team themselves? Are the team carrying the leadership team? You know, and is it more their performance and the maturity of their performance that is carrying the leaders? Hard to attribute and know. What's the talent like within the particular group? And particularly from a sporting sense, is like, you can be the best coach in the world, but if you haven't got a good playing roster, well, you're not going to perform that great. Is that a reflection on your coaching skills, or is just that a reflection on the playing roster and the recruitment? People side of things, so the people outcomes, how people are treated, how they're developed, the culture within the particular organization. A little bit harder to probably get some accurate data on. Also hard to attribute to one person as well. So for instance, if you look at a culture survey, are the particular questions targeted at what level of leadership? Is it the frontline leaders? Is it middle management? Is it senior leaders? Which level is it? How precise is that language and how does it link to that particular site? And is that the same across all different departments that are answering that question? You could be in a situation where you're performance managing a particular person or a team of people, which is the right thing to do and showing great leadership to be able to do that, but they're not going to give you the best report card on your performance. They're probably going to have a little bit of a, as you can imagine, axe to grind in regards to not being too happy about their performance being looked at in a certain way. So that can be a hard one, is it's not necessarily the people who are answering the survey are going to be 100% right. Are there, if there's a national team included within the company climate survey, are questions in there related to that? The engagement score for that, how is that attributed? You find with those climate surveys is that, they might have 4 or 5 questions that actually give you your engagement score. One of those may be, okay, retention and how long someone stays. Am I going to be here over the next 2 years? No, I'm not. I've got bigger plans. I want to move forward in my career. I want to do different things. Maybe it's not anything to do with the fact of the place that they're working in now or anything bad with that, but for their career, I'm a go-getter. I want to actually, go after it and chase other things. So, having those type of people instead of someone who's looking for a job for 20 or 30 years, that doesn't necessarily mean that the leadership is poor. There could be a number of things there. University students, younger people, all these different people who may not be looking for full-time work. What's the industry? If I'm working within a warehousing environment and I've got people studying to be a doctor and they do part-time work, well, obviously they're not going to be, staying for the long haul, and you'll score quite poorly from the engagement side of things. Another thing that you find with climate surveys is whether you call it internal marketing to the team and how effective that is and how much people are buying into the overall company taglines and strategies that they have. Is that hitting the mark? A particular site can be, from an engagement point of view, be scored quite poorly in regards to that. Not necessarily a direct reflection on their leadership, but in the end, the report card comes out and it's not a great result. So some real sort of hard ones there. Climate surveys is probably one. Getting direct feedback from people is another way to do it. Again, dependent upon the relationship and how comfortable they feel to answer those things, can be hard as well. But looking at particular programs and how they're going, what's in place from a succession planning, the maturity of that people space, and how much work and process has gone in there is another way. But again, is that attributed just to that one leader, or is that attributed to the wider team? So understanding exactly who's responsible for what in regards to performance is, again, like the objectives, can be a little bit difficult to understand. Can be quite easy when you have within a company, you've got a pretty stable team that's been there. There's been a change in a particular leadership. Performance has been at this level for a period of time. A new leader has come in, and you can see from that date or close to that date that there's been a spike and an improvement or a degradation in performance. So that's an easy way to do. From a sporting team standpoint and a coaching, pretty much every year a playing roster will change. So if a coach comes in, they'll have a different playing roster to the previous year. Is it, hey, has performance changed, improved, reduced because of the coach? Is it because of the playing roster? Is it because of the strategy from a president's point of view, a committee level, a board of directors, a wider football management? Is it the recruitment is better? Is that going to be the factor that influences whether that leader's good or not? And if you look at the aspect of people and culture, those measurables are set by the particular company. Is that aligning to the actual leader? So there may be, each company has, they can set whatever markers they want to understand what they are, but are they aligned to the actual individual leader? So say, for instance, a particular company, they might be quite aggressive with turnover of people and getting rid of people, and that's their philosophy. Whereas a particular leader may be more inclined to want to develop people and work with people and grow the team that's already there. Is that leader going to be judged poorly because of that? Most likely. There's obviously going to be some friction there in regards to where a leader is going to want to put their time. So a lot of it's going to come down to who is grading that as well. Is it purely on facts, or are there other influences? So because, like I discussed with objectives and the people side of things, hard to probably attribute those to one particular person in most instances. So the perception of that particular leader, is that going to then take over and influence whether they're performing to the level that they're supposed to be? So say, for instance, you've got a leader who pushes back a lot and will talk through and won't be a yes person and will actually want to understand things and talk about how things could be better or different, or, hey, have we spoken about these things? That leader could be viewed as a pain in the butt by certain people. That may not necessarily be accurate. They're driven to want to actually improve and see where things can go for the benefit of the team. But if it's up to a little bit of perception, because those measurables are hard to directly attribute to a particular person, well, it is going to come down to perception and relationships to a certain extent. And you can understand how that can influence, how someone's viewed in their capabilities. Another one is reputation. Again, up for a little bit of perception there, but what is said about them after they're gone? Is it positive stuff? What happens to the performance once they're gone is another indicator as well. Has it improved or has it got worse? Depending upon, is that the new leader that's influenced that, or is it because a quality leader has left? So there's probably a few things there that, again, aren't necessarily clear cut on what they can be looked at. But I think the big one there for leaders as well is, like, are the organizational values, are they aligned to you as a leader and what they are? you may be being viewed as someone who's not up to scratch and you put too much time into a particular area. But from a leadership point of view, that may well be the areas that you feel is the right way to do it. So does that make you a bad leader? Maybe it makes you a bad performer in the leadership role that you're in. But overall, does that make you a bad leader? You can argue, no, it doesn't make you a bad leader. So those sorts of things, again, it's like, okay, well, does the business have the right criteria to understand exactly what a leader is? Does that match your values and your integrity and your outlook on leadership? And then if we look at from a coaching standpoint, measuring the impact of a coach is like, again, very similar to the leader side of things. You can look at some performance outputs and some objectives that way. The win-loss record obviously is an easy one to measure, but is that attributed, like I said, to the actual coach? Is it that they've got a really good assistant coach group behind them or a strength and conditioning team behind them? Have they got a really strong legacy from previous people that have been involved that then they've inherited or taken on? Or is it them? Hard to know. The talent is a big one. From a coaching point of view, if you don't have the squad, you are not going to compete against other players. It's just not going to happen. A coach can obviously influence the performance, but how much can they do that? If a squad is from a roster point of view, quality-wise, if that's squad A is at their 90%, that's they're a 9 out of 10 performance-wise, and the coach is actually not the best coach, and it's actually pulling them back and taking them back 10% and making them an 8 out of 10 compared to the coach that's on the other side. They've got a squad that's only 5 out of 10, 50%, and then they're in a situation where the coach is really good. He's developing plays. He's doing some great things and getting better performance out of that group, but he's lifting them up 25%. He's only at 75%. He's a 7.5 compared to the other one. The other coach is an 8 out of 10. So, obviously the coach is dragging them back, but the playing group is masking that. And if you looked at win-loss records, positive performances, that can mask some poor coaching. Poor performance can mask some really good coaching. So again, hard to attribute just that particular win-loss. Over a career, you could probably get a little bit of an idea, but if you're a coach and you're in a structure that is really sound, you've got a great recruitment policy and good players coming through, or you've had plenty of time with the squad and everyone's buying in, that's obviously going to be a lot easier to go into than a new club that has a lesser of a playing group that you've got to work with. You're not going to have the performance and success. You may be coaching twice or 3 times better than other coaches, but because you don't have that structure or that history or that time that others have already had, you're not going to be viewed that you're competing at the right level. So again, a coach wins a grand final. Is it the coach? Who knows? There's lots of moving parts involved in that. Injuries, the support from others, the buy-in. Is the playing group really mature and, like I mentioned, carrying the coach? Is that the situation? Or is the playing group holding the coach back? How much actual input can the coach have to change that attitude? Or is it that they're not up to the standard and you've got to kill a year to get through before you can actually bring in some new players and recruit it better? Again, you can look at win-loss record and go, maybe not. Improvement over time, are players, teams getting better under the particular coach, or are they going backwards? Do you have a massive turnover? Again, that's got to be looked at like from a corporate standpoint. Are they people that are, really good players that are wanting to go and try in different competitions to a higher level? Are they just going because of different things? So, some exit interviews and understanding why people are leaving is really important. The people side of things, so a player development point of view, the growth of the individual athletes is another area. Are they improving technically, tactically, and from a mental well-being point of view? The young talent progression, how is that coming along? Team culture and chemistry. And probably one thing that served me well is just understanding is What are the drama levels like within a particular organization? Is there lots of drama and gossip and different things going on? Well, that's probably a good pointer to understand, maybe that culture is not at the best level. So, how cohesive are they? How resilient are they when things go wrong? What are some of the measures when things do go wrong? Do they point the finger? Do they actually work through the issue and solve the problem and review it afterwards? Another little marker you can see from an outsider quite easily with sporting teams is how they celebrate wins. Are they humble with how they do that? Are they rubbing it in the face of opposition? What are some behaviors there? How do they perform when they're up against it within games? What are their effort areas like? So how hard are they willing to work off the ball to be able to influence the team? From a coaching point of view, who is grading the performance of that coach? Is it the person or the people that have employed that coach? Well, they're obviously, you could understand that they may be looking at it a little bit more positively than what it is, because it will reflect poorly on them. Are they marking them poorly because of they haven't had input into that? There's a number of probably things there about who's marking that. Again, because it's not as clear cut as just, okay, well, this coach had this many wins and that's better than the previous year. So hard to again, attribute performance through the measurement of outcomes and win-losses and so forth there. The other one too is like, what is the goal of a sports coach? Well, that's going to be a little bit different. If it's a professional, maybe it is just winning. Maybe it is producing better people, and then the winning side of things will look after itself. Is it developing athletes because it's a development side? Is it junior sport and it's not so much about winning and competing? It's more about the enjoyment and skill development. So, again, depending upon the level of coach and what's expected, that's going to be very dependent upon, whether they're measured as a good coach or not. You can be a really good coach, but be a terrible junior coach, or you could be a really great junior coach and be a terrible senior coach. Doesn't mean you're a bad coach, but it's just understanding what the different objectives are that are being set. You look at Brisbane Lions and Chris Fagan, 2017, 2018, both years lost 17 games. From a timing point of view, that's another one. Do people get enough time? If he finished up after those 2 years, well, after that, they've gone for a semi-final, a prelim. They went back to a semi-final. Would that be an opportunity for that person not to be there anymore? They're not producing, they're not improving from a win-loss point of view and on a performance point of view. But then after that, they've gone semi-final, prelim, grand final, and then 2 premierships. So if a coach is deemed, like Michael Maguire, to not be up to scratch or not fitting with a particular sporting club like the West Tigers, is that after a period of time, they're not viewed as the right option moving forward. So is that because they're a bad coach? Is that because they weren't given enough time to produce outcomes? What does that look like? In the Brisbane Lions example, is that they were given enough time, and by the sounds of it, we're all on the same page, and the longer term vision and goal was stuck to and moved forward and got some success in a big way after a period of time. So really understanding what the goals are from a business point of view with what they expect from leaders, and then also from a sporting club in regards to what they expect. Is it winning at all costs or producing outcomes at all costs and as efficiently as possible? Do we treat people like dirt to do that? Do we stand by values and don't waver on our values just to chase wins? What is that? It depends on what the organization wants. Doesn't necessarily mean it's good, doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but it fits for what they're after. And a clear discussion on that just at the start from the recruitment process is just around, okay, well, what are the objectives and what are the particular things they're looking for? What are the measurables that can be looked at so a leader can understand whether they're doing a good job in that particular role? What are those expectations, and clearly setting those? That will probably dictate the type of person that you get as well, and understand whether they're going to stay for a period of time instead of getting 6 months or 12 months in and understanding it doesn't fit or align with the particular person in regards to what the organization is looking for from an outcomes point of view. But breaking those down is really, really key, and having some clear ones there. Hard to measure, but there are some ways to particularly do that. I've always looked at from a leadership point of view is like, how can I improve processes and improve the performance of the particular team? So if I'm able to do that, hitting objectives, financial, strategic, operational objectives, that will come on the back. That will be the trophy. If I'm able to improve the team and the actual processes, well, that will mean that we will be better and be able to hit those particular markers and work towards that. So what are those little things that you're doing to improve the team and to improve from a task point of view? What's viewed there? You can measure those, you can see those. They may not be a particular stat, they may not be a particular metric, but you can clearly view whether they've been done or not. So having a focus on those things, and particularly for new leaders, is really important to clearly set those out. So from a goal setting point of view, you can have some real 2 or 3 real key markers, and they don't necessarily have to be metrics, but they are behaviors or improvement areas that they can work towards. And how you can come up with those 2 or 3 particular areas is that it's got to link back to the direction of the particular organization. So what's the direction? What's the goals? What's the values of the organization? Then you can then break down, okay, well, what are some behaviors that we want to influence those particular areas? So how is the leader going to support the team to contribute to that direction, that strategy, and those goals and values? What are some values that they can push with their team to be able to work towards that? And then, okay, well, what are those behaviors? And then how can we document or measure those particular behaviors and understand them? So it can be quite complex to understand whether a leader is good or not, or are they improving. So if you looked at and broke down what's the goal of a leader, delivering results and developing people are probably the 2 key ones. If you're able to nail those and put a hell of a lot of time into that and push those to improve, well, you're going to find that your culture is going to be determined by those and how you go about those. Importantly, you can push results and you can push to develop people. You can do it in a way that's going to really poorly affect culture. And again, that's where the values one pops in there for what the particular organization values in regards to those behaviors. But delivering results and developing people, if you do that really well and you do it in a way that treats people well and has a team first approach, but has a very big eye on improving capabilities in both those areas, your culture is going to look after itself in regards to that. People are caring, people are giving me time to develop me, people are wanting to improve, and so on and so forth. But how you do that in a particular way will dictate that culture. So in summary, I suppose it can be quite complex to understand the performance from a leadership point of view. So if you're looking from a distance and seeing as an outsider performance of a particular team and going, that leader must be fantastic because that team is performing well. Well, it may not just be that. There's a lot of different moving parts involved that will dictate the performance of that team. There's a hell of a lot that goes into, whether someone's a proficient leader or not. There's going to be an aspect, depending upon the culture within businesses, on whether that's judged on perception or whether that's judged in reality, probably posing more questions than delivering answers in regards to what we're discussing here. But in the end, opening up a conversation about, okay, well, how do you physically measure and understand the proficiency of the leaders within your organization? How do you measure whether you're doing a good job or not? How do you physically do that? And at the very least, if that starts a conversation to proactively, work through and understand that, or some thought on that, that's the whole purpose, I suppose, of the episode and the conversation. And making that point is that it's not as clear cut as just, okay, it's the coach that has influenced a positive or negative result. And it's not as clear cut as a leader or coach directly impacting the performance of a team.